You're watching Voices in Mystery. I'm your host, Nancy Carlson, and our next author is Brenda Chapman, who's come all the way from Ottawa, Canada, to talk about her newest book, In Winter's Grip. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you.
I believe In Winter's Grip is your first adult detective. Is it a detective novel or a mystery?
It's a mystery.
All right, tell me about it.
Well, it's set in Minnesota and Ottawa. I'm from Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. But the bulk of the story is set in Minnesota. It's about a 40-year-old woman named Maja Cleary, who is called back to her hometown of Duvet Cove, which is fictional, but set in a real physical setting in Minnesota, because her father's been murdered. So Maja goes back. Her brother is suspected of committing the murder, and she goes back to try to save him. So,
Did you choose Minnesota because of the winters that they have there, or because you know the state?
I know the state. I grew up in northwestern Ontario, just on the north shore of Lake Superior, so I know that area of the country.
And did you have to go back there to do some of your research for setting, or did you just make it all up knowing Minnesota?
Well, I made it up knowing Minnesota, and I did research on the internet. So I also searched out locations and, made sure I had the geography right and all of that.
Now, this book is targeted to adult readers.
Yes.
It's newly out, right?
Yes, it's
Congratulations.
fresh off the press.
Fresh
Thank
out.
you.
Can you find it in bookstores yet?
I think in a week or two, but it
Good.
will be there, yes.
Good. What was it like writing for adults rather than the juvenile series, which we'll talk about in a minute? What's the difference?
I really enjoy both. I was a teacher, a special education teacher, so I began writing with young adult and really enjoyed that. But adult, it's a little more freeing because you can get into different themes and more adult language and imagery. So,
Are there guidelines for juvenile books that are no-nos, that you shouldn't approach, that you think children can't handle?
well, for me personally, I was careful. Like these are my juvenile series is for ages 10 to 14, so I was careful with language and themes. You can use quite older themes if you like. I had themes of divorcing parents and that kind of thing, but you have to handle them differently than you would for an adult
And then,
book.
do you make the sentence structure simple sentences as opposed to complex, or does that not matter?
Quite simple sentences for children, yes. And the language is somewhat simpler. And I actually had my daughter, who was 12 at the time, read my first book, and when she said, "I don't know what this word means," I would change it.
Well,
so she was a great editor.
A good test audience.
Yes, yes.
The books that you write from Canada are your hobby or pastime, because you also have a very important job in Canada?
Well, I work full-time for the federal government as a senior communications advisor. So this could be considered a hobby, but I would like it to become a career at some point.
Good. Well, have you thought of writing a government book, or are you too close to that? You know too much and get in too much trouble
I
for
have
that.
secret clearance, and there's a lot I can't talk about with my job.
So you're better off to stay on the frozen ponds
Yes.
of Minnesota. So you do say you go on tour and do book things. What did you mean by that? Do you go to stores?
On the way down, we stopped at Foul Play Bookstore and met with the book club. I'm traveling with Mary Jane Maffini. We also went to a library and did an event just south of Cleveland. So and another bookstore in Canada on our way down. So those kinds of things. Meeting people.
Oftentimes writers are shy people, so is it hard for you to do this element of book writing, is to talk to people?
It can be a little daunting, but the more you do it, the easier it gets. So it is fun, and it's fun to meet people and and people who love books. So,
and do you find going to conferences often helps too? You've gone to a variety of conferences?
Yes, and you meet people there, other authors, publicists, agents, plus fans. So
Good.
Conferences are great places to go if you're an author.
Well, what are you working on next?
I have a few projects on the go. I'm actually, I've written a book called The Second Wife for a new publisher, Orca Publishing, which is in Victoria, British Columbia. And it's a book for adults with literacy problems, but the content is for adults. So the sentences are simpler and the language is simpler. And that's coming out in the spring. And I've also been working on a young adult novel mystery set in the Vietnam era. And that will be coming out probably next fall.
I have a question about the literacy. Is that a whole genre of books?
Yes, they're called rapid reads. They're the series Orca is producing, and they're doing quite well. They're also, you can read them if you're going on a trip on the airplane and you just want a quick read. So
I didn't know anything about that. I thought they probably would have to read juvenile books, and that's not the case for it.
having taught literacy to some adults, I know that the content is a lot of it was children's. So now these books are great because it's adult content but written at a lower grade level. So
Well, that's a very honorable thing to be doing, I think. It helps people learn
they
to
were
read.
so much fun to write.
So, well, I thank you so much for being on the program. You've brought with you the In Winter's Grip, which is what our viewers should be looking for on the bookshelves. But your juvenile books are also on.
Yes, they can be ordered on Amazon or Barnes & Noble, any of the major stores.
And how many are in that series?
There are 4.
Good. Well, thank you so much for being on the show with us today. We've been visiting with Brenda Chapman, who comes to us from Ottawa, Canada, and has written 4 juvenile books and 1 adult book. And thanks for being on the show.
Thank you so much.